being a female leader in tech has, a lot of ups and downs. I think one of the things when you asked me this question, when we talked about it, the thing that came to mind right away for me was there is this perception that because I'm nice, I'm soft, right? And let me unpack that a little bit by what I mean. So my leadership style is very much an empathetic leader. Always have been servant leadership style. It's how it's evolved over time. And it's kind of what I'm known for, right? But there is this perception based off depending on the company I've been in, that because I'm an empathetic leader, because I foster people's career paths and coaching and helping people get to their next level, whatever that may be, that I'm not tough, that I can't run a business. So I've had to fight against that perception for a number of years. I think for me, what's helped me get over that perception is my ability to deliver and execute and deliver on what I promise and what I say. That has, just high level, that's what's differentiated me as a woman in tech.
Hello and welcome to the Unicorn Leadership Podcast. My name is Fahd Al-Hattab and I am your host. On this podcast is where we interview leaders on their journeys of building high-performing teams, of starting companies, of scaling companies, and everything in between on how to be an effective leader. Our goal is to bring you the insights, the tools, the stories, so that you don't make all the same mistakes that our guests have. Or maybe you do make the mistakes, but you find a way to get past them. You find a way to work through them during those difficult times. This podcast is brought to you by Unicorn Labs, and where we transform managers into leaders that create high-performing teams that scale. And you can check it out at unicornlabs.ca. We're excited because in this episode, we bring you exactly what we promised with Jeanette. Jeanette Dorazio, the CEO of Lead Pages, a no-code website and a landing page builder. Jeanette's going to share her journey as a woman leader in the tech startup industry, and actually how she got into tech and her journey from starting at Target and leading teams there to getting into tech, to becoming a product manager, to working her way up all the way to CEO and now leading a phenomenal team. We're going to learn how she actually leans into her empathetic leadership style and how it has helped her make some really difficult decisions in her career, but at the same time has sometimes been criticized for it. I'm excited for you to all listen to this episode because of the strength and enthusiasm that she brings in breaking down barriers and championing the inclusion and success of women in STEM fields. I had a phenomenal time recording the episode with Jeanette, and I believe you're going to have a fun time being able to go through it. So let's cut to another little clip here to hear more from Jeanette.
But what that has helped me to realize is, everybody has a role to play on the team. Sometimes you're more active than others. And sometimes you don't get to go to the big show. And that happens. And so I try to think of that as I'm having to make these hard decisions, right? How is this going to get us to our next strategic initiatives, or, where the company wants us to be? What are our goals? And, bringing that all together. And what I try to do as much as possible is treat those folks as you have to move them out with dignity, and know that this is not going to be a good day in their life, right? And you have to treat them with kindness and respect, and help them get to whatever their next venture is going to be.
each stage of Jeanette's career, she walks us through different obstacles that she had to overcome in her leadership journey of becoming a successful leader in tech. And she's going to offer insights and tips on how to lean into your strength as a female leader. Strength, how some strengths can come off as a weakness to society, but how to reframe that and still work through it. She also identifies ways where you can drive successful growth as you learn to lean into your leadership style. It's phenomenal to see because she talks about leaning into strengths, leaning into leadership styles, really leaning into who you are and finding ways to win within a position of strength. And in listening to this episode, if you come across thinking, hey, I might need to do what is my leadership style? What are my strengths? What is my personality? If you find yourself wanting to answer these questions and looking for assessments that you could use or your team could use, feel free to connect with us at unicornlabs.ca. We have a number of leadership assessments and personality assessments and team assessments that you can use to help you hone in on your strength and lean into it so that you can lead at your best. See, Jeanette's advice is that she likes to lead, and for her, her strengths are to lead with empathy, to build relationships, and to individualize your leadership approach to the person's needs, motivations, and wants. In this episode 17, she lays out how to reach the next level of your leadership career if you're going from one stage to the next. And she shares 3 insights on her journey. One, it's about knowing what's happening in the market, which she calls outside in. When she says, because nothing important happens in the office, you got to get out there and you got to figure it out. So get out and listen to the customer and figure out what your customers want, what their problems are. Secondly, she talks about listening first and understanding all sides before communicating. Really seeking to understand is a key part of our leadership. And lastly, she literally gets into data analytics and being able to interpret data as a necessary technical skill for all leaders. So without further ado, tune in to hear the insightful tips from Jeanette's experience. And if you like what you hear, feel free to let us know on any of our social media handles at Fahd Al-Hatab. Leave us a review for the podcast on your app of choice. Give us a 5-star, share the word, but most of all, have fun as you listen to this episode. And without further ado, let's jump in and hear from Jeannette Dorazio. All right, Jeannette, welcome to our Unicorn Leadership Podcast. I'm really excited to have you. We spoke a little while back and we talked about bringing you on the show to talk about your leadership experience, your immense leadership experience in the tech industry, in the tech world, and your leadership experience as a woman leader. And so I'm really excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I want to kick us right off, as we always do in our episodes. We want to get to the meaty question that we're all here for. I want to hear from you.
Okay.
What are the challenges and the difficulty that comes uniquely with women leadership and women leadership in tech, in startups, when you're building, you're growing, and you're creating something that's, trying to go to the moon and trying to build that unicorn, trying to, whatever it is, the challenges that come with being a female leader in that tech space. I'd love for you to unpack that for me and for our audience.
Sure. Kind of a loaded question there.
Yes, yeah, very much.
I'm up for the challenge. So, being a women, a female leader in tech, has a lot of ups and downs. I think one of the things when you asked me this question, when we talked about it, the thing that came to mind right away for me was there is this perception that because I'm nice, I'm soft, right? And let me unpack that a little bit by what I mean. So my leadership style is very much an empathetic leader. Always have been servant leadership style. It's how it's evolved over time. And it's kind of what I'm known for, right? But there is this perception based off depending on the company I've been in, that because I'm an empathetic leader, because I foster people's career paths and coaching and helping people get to their next level, whatever that may be, that I'm not tough, that I can't run a business. So I've had to fight against that perception for a number of years. I think for me, what's helped me get over that perception is my ability to deliver and execute and deliver on what I promise and what I say. That has, just high level, that's what's differentiated me as a woman in tech. Have I had gender problems? Here and there over time. But I didn't let that, permeate in and stop anything. I just, doubled down and really, looked at the environment and, if a gender issue came up, try to figure out, well, where's that coming from? Why is this happening? And when it did, a lot of times it was because I didn't do something. I didn't deliver on something I said I would. But yeah, that's the biggest thing for me when you ask me that question, Fahd, is what are the differences and what are my challenges? That's the biggest one. It's become much better, I would say, since pandemic, as the whole work home life balance is kind of melded together, right? People are working where they live, and really empathetic leadership has come to the forefront. And it's, I don't know if it's a skill other than, part of who I am and what makes me, who I am as a leader, as a person. So a little bit, it's become more accepted now. And yet again, versus, hey, that was a soft skill, right? Can she really sit at the table with everybody else and represent and run that business?
Yeah. That's really interesting because the way you phrased it and the way you put it here, Jeanette, it's almost as if any empathetic leader might face some of those issues, right?
Absolutely.
Despite gender, any
Yep.
empathetic issues, a leader might have this, like, well, can you actually lead? And so what I'm hearing and what I'm reading in between the lines is people want to know whether you can make the difficult decisions.
Exactly.
Right? Like, can you make the tough call? If you're empathetic and you are nice, but it comes to a moment where you have to make a hard decision, are you going to do it, or are you going to like dance around it? So
Absolutely.
help me through that. Talk me through, how did you come to being able to make some of these difficult decisions, some of these hard decisions? Was there a hard or difficult decision that was a defining moment for you, that even helped you see beyond your empathetic leadership, to see that, like, empathy doesn't just mean being nice, but also means taking care of the necessary team, which means making difficult decisions? Was there a moment for you in there?
Sure. Oh, there's been a few. I think the one that comes top of mind that almost any leader I know struggles with, and it's probably very applicable right now, is when you have to make a hard decision around cutting costs, right? And a lot of times, cost equals people. Businesses, there's cycles, they go up and down. We're in an environment right now where you see the news and you see, I can't pick up a story daily. There's some company that's had to make that hard decision. And for me, that was a few years ago, where I was leading a very large strategic group within the company I was working for. And the directive came down. We had to make some decisions on people. And for me, it's hard as an empathetic leader, but I understand it, that I understood the task that I had to undertake to do that. How did I do that being an empathetic leader? Is I made the hard decision, right? I had to take a look at my team, what the output was, how that was lining up with the strategy of where the company was going. And ultimately, I hate saying it comes down to a list, but it comes down to you having to make a choice between some folks and who's going to help you get there, right? I often equate it to, I grew up as an athlete. So there were several times where, I was part of a team that, we were doing well, and we went to state championships, national championships.
What sport did you play?
There's several of them. I played, oh my goodness, I played basketball, softball, volleyball, soccer,
Oh,
you
wow.
name it. I played it.
Yeah.
It was mostly
That's awesome.
my basketball and my softball teams that usually were going on to state and national championships.
Cool.
And it was what I admired about my coaches that I had during that time is they were very honest and very open and transparent, and would tell us that, listen, a team, we utilize everybody's strengths. The strengths of the individuals make up the team, and is what makes us successful and important. And they're going to use those strengths of the people on the team that are going to get us to win those championships, whether it's state or national. Which is hard to hear as a young person, right? As a young person growing up. But what that has helped me to realize is, everybody has a role to play on the team. Sometimes you're more active than others. And sometimes you don't get to go to the big show. And that happens. And so I try to think of that as I'm having to make these hard decisions, right? How is this going to get us to our next strategic initiatives, or, where the company wants us to be? What are our goals? And, bringing that all together. And what I try to do as much as possible is treat those folks as you have to move them out with dignity, and know that, this is not going to be a good day in their life, right? And you have to treat them with kindness and respect, and help them get to whatever their next venture is going to be, or the next chapter in their life. Everybody's different, right? You kind of have to, depending on what your role is in those type of events. But I've found, again, treating people with respect, humility, put yourself in their shoes. It's not a good day. I've been in their shoes, so I do have some practice on that, some empathy on that side. But that's how I've approached one of those very tough decisions where I know I was being monitored and watched to see, can she make those difficult decisions? Can she do that? And then what's the outcome on the other side, right? Because there's the event that happened, but then how does the team that's left react? How do you reset expectations? How do you provide that positive leadership message so that they can go forward and not get stuck into what just happened? I think that's, that entire scenario is hard as it is, but you have to remember there's two parts to that. There's the people that are affected, there's the team that's left, and how do you lead them through that to that that next chapter. And what you need to do is important. It's key.
Yeah. One of the through lines that I'm hearing in your leadership kind of ability here that I really like is you had to learn to perhaps own your empathetic leadership style, despite the fact that people might have told you, oh, you're being too nice, or you're too, and that's often what happens to young leaders. That's what happens to a lot of women leaders who are told, you need to be more tough, you need to be more dominant, you need to be more this, and they pull themselves out of their own natural style to try and reform their leadership style to what someone else thinks. But you leaned into your empathetic style and used that to make the hard decision. Because what I'm hearing is like, if I had to let some good people go, but the entire time you told me about how you did it in such an empathetic way. And I think that is so brilliant for people who are listening here to hear that, is that despite people thinking you might need to shift your style, you can still hone in and allow your leadership style to be your strength, but counterbalance it and within your strength too, right?
Absolutely.
I really like that. I think
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So I'm going to keep going down this path because I think there's some really good stuff. But before we do that, I want people to
Okay.
know a bit of the amazing story that is Jeanette, kind of
Goodness.
the come up. So we learned a little bit about your sports world and your
Yeah.
sports life. Tell me a little bit about your roots. Where are you from? Where were the beginnings? Where were the humble beginnings? And let's hear about how did you come to the insights and the become the leader that you are today? Because I think so
Yeah.
often many of us are on this journey of leadership, and we look at people who have had more experience and we want to be there, but perhaps there's been many learnings and failures and troubles along the way, and moments where maybe you didn't always hone into your strengths, right?
Right, right. Oh goodness. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Born and raised in Minnesota, so I have been very fortunate to. I haven't had to relocate. I've in Minnesota, the Minneapolis, St. Paul area is a great uh, bastion of major corporations, as well as we've got a nice little tech community here too. So I've been fortunate so far to be able to stay here. Although we just got done with I don't know, about 2 feet of snow that dumped on
Oh
us.
my God.
Yeah, the past 48 hours. So I feel like I'm in Buffalo, New York. I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on here, but so I your question is good, right? How did I become to be a leader and get into leadership? I'm the oldest of four siblings.
Oh my. What do you have?
I
Brothers, sisters?
I have two sisters and a brother.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I was, my mom put me in that leadership position, right? It's,
Mm, mm.
whether it's, I'm wrangling one of my younger sisters, or I had to help her with something she was doing. And a lot of times too, I was the babysitter. I was the after school babysitter after
Yeah,
I got to
yeah.
be a certain age. My sports usually didn't start till, after 5 o'clock. So there's this period of time my mom and my dad work split shifts. So instead
Mm.
of paying a babysitter, I got to do that. So there's a lot of leadership skills
Yeah,
that come into play in there.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Especially if I was having to referee some fight that breaks out
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But combine that with I gravitated towards whether I was a Girl Scout. So I always, depending on what events we were doing, or whether it was camping or boating or whatever was going on in the Girl Scouts at the time, I always found myself in that lead position.
Yeah.
The scout leaders would always they knew they could count on me to do whatever it is. Hey
Yeah.
Jeanette, can you go round up those cases of cookies we have? It's Girl Scout cookie season right now. Or I need you to lead this. We're gonna split into teams, and I need you to lead this team. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, you know, I had opportunities like that.
I think perhaps that's why we got along so well right away. I wasn't a Boy Scout, but I did camps. I was part of Boys and Girls
Did
Clubs
you?
and camps,
Yep,
and so I think maybe that's why you and I right away clicked. Because
yep.
whenever you meet a kindred soul that way, they're like, you were a camp kid for
Had
sure.
to.
You spent some time outdoors with other people wrangling and
Yep,
making fires and doing things. So that's awesome. I love to hear
yep,
that. Good.
yep, yep. So, and that evolved into athletics, which we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of great coaches that I had growing up, and it was probably late, early high school where I realized it just kind of clicked with me that I'm pretty good at this. I like it. I like being the leader.
Mm.
There's this great responsibility that I have. It's that quote. With great responsibility, comes empathy, et cetera, et cetera. Right? You're in charge of it. So I just had a real knack for that. And storytelling here, kind of going into college, same thing. I was I did work study. I worked in the counselor's office and stuff. And, I was quickly moved up to, lead aide, right? She's pretty dependable, and, she handles, it was interesting. The person I was working with at the time, I think she was the lead secretary for the whole area for the counselor's office. And I remember her saying specifically, we can count on Jeanette. She's really good with confidential information and she gets stuff done. And I thought, okay, life skill right there. That's a good one. But, going my whole, even my college, time in college, and, I actually was on a business path and I switched over to political science. Weird. I know, some people, but what I liked about political science was the critical thinking. I wrote a lot of papers and essays and thought leadership articles, and really putting my brain into a different spot than just, hey, I'm in an economics class learning about, economic strategy and managerial leadership, which is important. But it really wasn't lighting my passion. So, took that and went into, I worked for Target early in my career. They're headquartered here. I think half my family worked there at one point, in various different areas within Target. Yeah. But getting those leadership opportunities within Target too. I worked in the warehouse. I worked in accounts payable. I was on the team that launched the Super Target project when they first got into grocery. Very small team that got put together on that. And I had such a thirst for learning. I wanted to learn as much as I could, as fast as I could, to the point I remember one of my annual reviews at Target, I was far excelling where they thought I would. And I was told, we could give you, we should be giving you a raise. We should be putting you here, but that's not what everybody does. So we've got to keep you with the pack, which just pissed me off because I want to go faster. I want to do more.
Yeah. Well, I'm outperforming the pack. Why do you have to?
Right.
Why do you have to keep me in the pack?
Yeah. And some of that, there's no fault of Target at all.
No.
Fantastic place to work. It's just larger companies, right? They have their process. They have, your path that they want you to be on, and moving you to those next levels. I was just a little faster than they anticipated, which is fine. It's great. I also, the key thing is I also had the opportunity to work with some fantastic leaders. And Target was fantastic, where they encouraged seeking out mentors and sponsors, and they allowed you to do that and gave you the space to do that. And I had some fantastic mentors as I was growing in my career and trying to understand what's good leadership versus what's bad leadership. So I learned very quickly.
So maybe take me through that. Give me what were some of the early kind of manager leadership mistakes that you went through with Target? So you're gung-ho, you're brilliant, you've got some leadership experience when you were young, you got all this stuff, you're running, you're go. And so what were some of the pitfalls? What were some of the obstacles? What were some of the I did this?
Oh, good question. Oh boy. Relationship building was a big one. Not that it got me into trouble necessarily, but I had this perception, expectation, kind of whatever you call it, that as I was doing well and that as I was executing and delivering and helping my team, whatever team I was on at the time at Target, helping them succeed, which was great, it wasn't going to get me to the next level in leadership that I was looking for. So what does that mean, right? What's the next level in leadership? So you can lead projects, you can lead one or two, people, maybe a smaller team. You're a team lead, a supervisor, but I wanted to sit in the big chair, right? I wanted I wanted to build a successful business and a team, right, within the bigger business. And so that's more people, more responsibility. So how do I get to that, right? And I know a lot of young people that I mentor today ask me that question, right? I want to be there, right? I want to do that. It's relationship building for me. That was the building that was the big aha moment, stumbling block that I hit. That I needed.
So you weren't doing enough of it. You weren't spending time.
Nope. I didn't
just
know
very
how.
task oriented. Like
Yep,
just get
I
the
was
job
very
done.
task
Do this. Do that.
oriented.
And you didn't know how. Explain that one. What like.
Yep. It's one thing. I was very good at interacting, working as a team, right? I always works, the works well with others piece that you see on whether it was your report cards in school or your annual reviews that you had. Works well with others, gets along, perfect, best team person you could have. But I didn't know how to promote myself. I didn't know how to, I was scared to go talk to other people just out of the blue and start that conversation and ask them, what do you do here? What do you like about your job? I mean, it just starts with those things, those key pieces. The second piece of that is knowing where I wanted to go. How do I gain knowledge? How do I get access to those people where on the outside they look like they're untouchable, right? That was a key learning for me. So it wasn't necessarily a misstep, but one of those pieces where, I was getting to the point where I was hitting the wall. Yeah. Okay, how do I go beyond that, right? And so this is before LinkedIn. This is before some of those tools that we have now that make that a little bit less kind of skeevy. Some people used to say, but yeah, relationship building is a key thing.
And do you find that with teams being more remote, that managers and directors are struggling with that maybe more?
Absolutely. Yeah,
you're not bumping into people in the lunchroom or the team event as much, right? Like all this, the opportunities for those, because when your head's down, just working, getting your stuff done, you're not looking up. You're not seeing those. What do you think about that? What do you do for that now? What do you suggest to the people that you mentor now about kind of the reality of their situation and relationship building?
You almost have to put twice the effort into it, right? And you're spot on. I'll give you a good story. So when I was hired into Lead Pages, so my current role, and everything you've just heard about me, right? My relationship building. I'm very much the extrovert. I want to get to know people. I'm a servant / empathetic leader. Okay. I get my cues from being right in the same room with somebody. That got turned on its head. Now, I've always worked with, I've managed teams, engineering teams in India, Belarus, right? So I knew how to work remotely. It was different coming from my role now as leading a company, right? So I had to take a step back and think, all right, how am I going to do this? New CEO, they were just acquired. How do I do this? And I went right back to basics, right? I tried to ignore the screen in front of me, the two-dimensional, and try to build that relationship in the two-dimensional, but in a three-dimensional space. So what does that mean? It's talking to people often. It's doing virtual coffees. The very first 2 weeks of my job with Lead Pages, I did one-on-ones with every single person in the company, as well as the parent company that owns us, right? and started that relationship building. So it was a combination of a lot of Zoom calls. We have a great Slack culture. So it is, I check in, right? Sometimes it's me being funny, showing them my humility, being transparent too. That's key to the virtual world. And not excluding people. I think that's the hardest thing, right? How do you, Lead Pages is a hybrid environment. So how do we promote a sense of inclusivity when you have people remote, right? So, I tell a lot of our early career managers, it's what you used to do in person times 10, right? Check in with people often, see how they're doing. Be real, right? Just be real. How's it going? You'll get a sense right away how people, where they want to put the barriers up and what they want to say. But yeah, and what I find too is when people come into the hybrid space, they're so used to being remote. It takes them a while to get back into the groove, right? I have to remind myself, all right, Jeanette, don't get into people's faces, right? Just let them settle a little bit before you get all excited and start chatting with them. But it's been a challenge for sure.
Yeah. So relationship building was a big lesson and a challenge for you as you moved up in your leadership roles and targets. That was one challenge. What was the other challenge for you as a leader? What was maybe a piece of, a mistake you made or a piece of feedback that you constantly had to work through during those early years?
Let's see. A piece of feedback. Good question. Early years. Let's see. There was, I'm thinking of a time in particular where early leader, meaning I had a couple direct reports. And this was I had moved on from Target. I had gone to a different company, a smaller company. So I was given a leadership role and having to manage a couple people. And my big misstep I did is I made the assumption that they were just like me. What does that mean, right? Not blonde hair from Minnesota. But but just how their personality style, how they work, mindset. I was so caught up in wanting to be the best coach and to help them and get them where they needed to go that I misstepped, and it resulted where they got upset. They were frustrated with me. They wanted to quit. They went to my boss, and just all of these kind of horrible things were coming out that just shocked me, and really, as a leader, had me take a step back and really look at, all right, what was I doing? Where was the misstep? What can I learn from this? And that's the big thing. Not everybody's like me. Everybody has a different personality type, which inherently I knew somewhere. People learn at different levels, at different speeds. There's different types of workers, right? There's people that are, self-directed. You don't have to tell them what to do. There's some that just, they're very tactical. They just like, I like to do this task, then this task, and this task, and that's how they show success. And I remember having a conversation with my boss, full transparency, I just cried because my purpose wasn't to hurt them. I wanted to help them, but I actually did the opposite. fast forward a number of years, and I still have to remind myself, okay, Jeanette, not everybody's like you. And I really key into listening too, because I didn't listen first at that time. I just went right ahead and, here's what's worked for me. So I made some assumptions. And that was a key moment in my leadership career that, you know what, you need to step back. You need to listen first. You need to assess where they want to go, and how do they want to be led, right? I think that's a key thing that's sometimes hard to pick up, in how you're putting together a team.
Yeah. That's such a good. So we got Jeanette's two biggest mistakes. Number one, relationship building and learning how to do that, and number two, really being able to individualize her coaching approach, right, to each person's personalities and their needs and their learning styles and their wants, right? You're a very achievement, at least what I can tell, achievement oriented individual, right? You want to go, get the next thing. And some people are very happy with where they are. And we might not be like, why are you happy where you are? You can have so much more, right? Like that's that's where some of us are at. So then give me because life happens in threes, or I like to say they do. Give me the third big mistake. Maybe was there one around certain leadership decisions or business decisions or strategic decisions that you had to make? We had one about relationship building, one about individual management. Was there any around kind of direction setting that a faulty step, or maybe I don't know. Feel free. I'm framing it for you, but you tell me if it was if anything happened in there.
I have one comes to top of mind. So in my prior company to coming to Lead Pages, my mission was to build a customer success team, something that this business unit never had, kind of brand new. Honestly, I'd never built one either, but I had led and managed customer support teams. So this was taking that and just kind of emphasizing it, right? Turning it on its head a little bit more akin to traditional account management, right? I'm up for the task. So working with my boss and some finance people, and putting together the proposal. What does this look like? What's the team size, the makeup, the job descriptions, right? Just all these tactical things that hey, go build this team. Here's your budget, right? And here's what you need to do. So one piece of this, as I just mentioned, was job description. So what are we going to pay these people, right? How are they going to be incented? What are the goals that they want to hit? So, great project I had. I had a couple of my leaders. We built this project out. And there's a couple schools of thought with customer success, specifically in SaaS companies, is their compensation. Do you have lower base pay, higher incentive comp? Sometimes if you do that, you get a bit of a more salesy type bent. You're not necessarily taking care of the customers as fully as you want to, but it is a strategy. Second strategy, higher base pay, lower incentive comp, but your focus is on the customer. I want you to make that customer successful. I assumed we had alignment across, finance, my boss, his bosses, as far as what we wanted to set that compensation at. I had some emails, some sign off. Great. Turns out at the end of the day, after we had implemented it, after we had hired people, we get into a situation where I'm doing a yearly business review, and, I've got a finance person that kind of beelines into that line item and says, hang on, when did this happen? Oh crap. Right. And just, I have to backtrack and what's going on. I had to look and say, okay, where did I miss an internal cue, some communication to where they wanted lower base pay, higher incentive comp versus the way I had said it. At the end of the day, Nobody was impacted. It was all good. But I had to take a hit on that one. And I owned up to it, right? It wasn't my manager's fault. It wasn't the people who were, our employees in that team. That was a miss on me. And how do you, I think for me, it was, how do you come back from that, knowing that, it can impact people, right? And how that's going to go, but knowing that, hey, we've got business targets to reach. So at the end of the day, learned a huge lesson around compensation. Again, making sure that you've got some sign off on all levels. And it doesn't matter what your organization or how large it is, right? It could be very large, more of a corporate, to even small startup. I was in a startup for a couple of years, and where your budgets are, not as plentiful perhaps, or, you're going on the next deal that you can sign. And it's key just to have, compensation wise, how are we going to not only pay these people, but incentive, right? How do we incentivize them? How do we keep them passionate about it? So that was my third big one that I tripped up on. And
I think that's a phenomenal lesson. I think it's such a key lesson for our startup leaders. Often we say this with our startup leaders, not just our founders, but anyone in a startup. If you're a leader, revenue and cost controls are everyone's business.
Absolutely.
It's not just finance business. If you're a manager and you've taken on a leadership role, especially with a startup where it lives and dies with its cash flow over the next 2 to 3 months, everyone has to care about revenue and cost control.
Absolutely.
And really alignment on that. So I think that's really cool. So you shared with us some of your mistakes and some of your journey, and we went through Target, you were at another company, you were at a startup. Tell me a little bit about that career trajectory, and then where you are today at Lead Pages, and then we'll come back to some of our kind of questions. So what was that? What was that career? What was that career trajectory?
So it's the arc, my story arc. A lot of people ask me how I got into tech, right? You were working in retail and Target, and got some great, I think I took almost every single class Target offered on their internal training for leaders. Every single one of them. But I got into tech. I was working on a project at Target where they were implementing a new system in their transportation area. And I was working in there, they asked me to be a business analyst, right, with the third-party company that we were using to implement it. So I started doing that, right? And I was representing the users and how do we use the system and what our processes are. And, it was a chance to lead a larger project. And I loved it. The fact that I was using technology to solve problems was pretty cool. So a local software company, which was later acquired by Oracle, they did software applications for retailers worldwide. And they were looking for a product manager to lead, to build their store inventory management system. It was early mobile devices. They had one customer. They knew there was something there. Right now, when you walk into a retail store and you see people taking inventory, they're on phones or on, headsets, all kinds of things. And so I thought that was interesting. And there's a couple friends I had there, and I applied, and I thought, I'm not going to get this job, right? What do I know? They hired me. I had no idea what a
Target. She knows everything.
I guess, right? She knows. I had no idea what a product manager was. I was tech savvy, and I knew retail. So I thought, all right, we're going to put this together. And I just tried things, right? I just went for it. That was how I got into technology. I built it wasn't just me, but the team I was working with we built a store inventory management system on Java technology, that was like cutting edge at the time, or it was early 2000s. I had teams that were doing the early predecessor to agile development methodologies. And as I kept moving in product management and technology and, meeting retailers all over the world, I was getting more and more responsibility. So first it was, a $10 million revenue product. And then they added, okay, Jeanette executed on that. We're doing good. Okay, let's give her warehouse management systems. Let's give her, replenishment systems. So I had PhDs reporting into me with my team, which, can get a little bit daunting, but it was fantastic, right? It was just so fun to learn. Then I was getting leadership opportunities global, which was really cool for me. We talk about how sometimes it's tough with women in technology. Add women in technology in a global role, it gets even more difficult. And I took some great classes, talked to a lot of people. When I'm working with teams in India.
What are some of those? Yeah, what are some of those challenges at a global level, like
Sure.
women in global? Yeah, let's unpack that a bit.
And it's culture, right? Let's talk. It's really culture related. I spent some time. A good example is I spent some time with some teams in India. They were, our development teams, and there is a certain hierarchy. Just take any business meeting with, what your role is and what your gender is. And for me, I've worked with a lot of colleagues, a lot of women colleagues that would get upset at that and get mad, and they have their view of, well, I'm from the US and this is what it's like. I threw that in the garbage and said, no, I need to understand what that culture is like. How do they interact with people? What does business look like there? And really just throw everything I knew about, growing up in the US, being a leader in the US, and turn that on its head. So a lot of listening, a lot of, a great example. I was in a meeting with a customer of ours in Germany. So we had people from Germany, people from Portugal, India, right? It's like the United Nations at this table. I was the only female there. I was the decision maker. But the customer that was there deferred to one of the other folks in the room that was not the decision maker. I noted it. It's one of those things where I went, okay, got it.
Okay. I see it.
And I just worked around it, right? At the end of the day, I end up, making the decision and, what we were dealing with at the time. But, a lot of people, especially I see it from people coming in the US, they just rush in and they just make a lot of assumptions. I don't do that. It's one, it's disrespectful. But two, that's not how it is, right? You're leading, you have to lead that team, but you have to understand where they're coming from, and how they view the world. And that's what allowed me to really be successful with my, not just my teams, I people all over the world, but just, whether it was customers, whether it was different businesses, my interactions, just take that into mind. And you know what, there's some times where I'm, you're not going to be liked by everybody. And sometimes that's not the case, but just having that in my head that, just take a beat and kind of walk in their shoes and see what's going on. It's makes the world a difference.
Yeah. No, I think it's so powerful because, so often we can impose our moral hierarchy on other cultures.
Absolutely.
And we don't seek to understand. We very much judge from the perspective of the morals and ethics that we think are most correct. And it takes a certain sense of humility to seek to understand, and you can still disagree, but not
Totally.
impose yours, right? Like this is, and
Exactly.
I think that takes a certain leadership, that takes a certain empathy
Hmm.
and willing to be a servant leader, and willing to not, let yourself get upset at some of those slights and
Right.
pieces. Note them,
Yeah.
don't let it happen too often, but like, don't make it
Yeah.
the focus either. I think that was such a powerful piece for people who are growing through their leadership role. And especially the reason I wanted to pick on the global pieces is because I think more than ever, startups are now global based on talent competition, right? Like,
Completely.
we're all remote and I can hire from Latin America, from India,
Yep.
from Europe, and it's just easier to do that and find the right person than ever before. And so while before it would have taken a certain
Yep.
leadership role to become a global head,
Right.
now you don't have to even have hit
No.
that leadership role to become a global team. You can be a global team and a team of 5 or 6 people, right? Like,
Completely.
and
Yeah.
and and you're already global. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. It's a great call out.
So you started, doing a little bit more global work.
Global work, uh, uh, additional responsibilities, bigger, bigger pieces of businesses, bigger projects. You're learning along the way. I'm various successes, right? I wouldn't say that everything I was on and working on was a smashing success, because I believe in fostering a culture of failings okay. That took me
Mm.
a long time to get to, by the way, because I'm a perfectionist by nature. But um, failing's okay, because that's how I learned. That's how everybody learns, right? You have to sometimes fail and get knocked off the bike for you to understand. Oh, okay, well maybe I shouldn't have rode that fast that way, or maybe I shouldn't have,
Mm.
you know, maybe an assumption about compensation that I didn't validate, but um, so various different degrees of successes, various different roles. Um, I was on a I said I love technology. I was getting into roles where I was vice president of product management, right? Bigger roles, bigger portfolios of products and people. And it's about 5 years ago where I realized, you know what, I really like operations. I'm an operator. I love that piece of the business, whether it's big company, small company, somewhere in between. And I started honing in my skills around operations. So I had a
Mm.
great manager, great leader that I worked with, still mentor with, that gave me those opportunities. And I think that's the key to, if I'm tracking my progress here, is I, I didn't keep it a secret of what I wanted to do or what I wanted to try.
Mm.
I really try to get a seat at the table as much as possible, kind of lean into that. So I started doing more operations. So what does that mean in business? More finance, more sales, whether it's PLG or sales led SLG, um, customer support, all those different pieces. Whereas for years I was building products and technologies, and yes, I was involved with making sure there's a go-to-market plan and marketing is up to speed and customer success, and all the executives are seeing what you're doing and how you're successful is. But this was just all right. Now I'm executing on that other piece. So
Mm-hmm.
I was on a path to kind of chief operating officer roles when the Lead Pages opportunity came up. And they were looking for a leader of the business. Serendipitously, I had Lead Pages I had been tracking for a number of years, since they came onto the scene of the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
I loved what they were doing, especially at the time with their technology. Drag and drop, right? You can build a website, you can build a landing page. Holy cow! 8, 9, 10 years ago, I had to you had to hire a front end developer with CSS
Yeah.
experience to do that, who's probably knows WordPress, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so so I've been tracking them for a long time. And then when the role became available, and I was a front runner for this, I was really excited. So to be offered the chance and the opportunity to move into an even larger leadership role than I imagined has been just phenomenal. Just great to do. Throw in a pandemic. Just throw in a pandemic right there.
Just sprinkle that a little bit.
Yeah, just sprinkle that in. Had to deal with that. The other thing too, which being a Minneapolis-based company, is coming in. We still had the George Floyd, situation that we were trying to deal with our employees, and trying to give them the safe space that they needed to do just to talk about it and process it. It happened not too far where the company was, and it's a big event, right? And so coupling with all of that, and really pulling in from all my experiences, and how I am as a leader has really helped me come into this role. So that's my path. It's not done by any means. Still lots of opportunity to pursue, and see where it goes next. But yeah, that's my journey. That's how I got here.
That's fantastic. So Jeanette, let's say today you are running those leadership programs that you got to take at Target, and you're running it for a group of female tech product managers. Okay. So female tech product managers.
Got it.
And you get to bestow 3 large lessons on them about their leadership growth and practice. I know you've shared many so far, so
yes.
There could be some themes, but I would love the Jeannette now. And often when I look at leadership lessons, I like to say, like, what would your leadership lesson have been then versus it is now, right? Like there's often a then and now perspective in leadership lessons. And they kind of show some of our growth. So maybe I'll give you that framework and let you play with it a little bit. It doesn't have to be exactly 3. I chose 3 because I say
3's, that's our thing here. 3's is good. 3 female women product managers, early career coming in. Oh boy, there's a lot of things.
It could be even founders, female founders.
Yeah, female founders too. Big thing for me, outside in. What does that mean? As a product manager in technology, you have to understand what's going on in the market. What's outside your 4 walls that you're in, that you work in every day, that you're doing stuff, right? There is a saying, nothing important happens in the office. And as I was building my product teams, that is the first thing. I actually even gold people on that too, right? As far as, hey, we usually had some kind of bonus with product managers. A quarter of your bonus is how many customer visits you do, how many prospect visits you do, and understanding what their problems are, and what they need help solving, and how can our technology do that, right? And again, various different technologies, right, depending on what I was in. But first and foremost, get outside. Nothing important happens in here. I always say you can create some really cool stuff, but if it's not solving anybody's problem, then it's just something cool that's for you. So get outside the office. 2, listening, right? And I think we talked about it a couple times during our conversation here. Listen first, right? Understand, no matter what the question is or the issue going on, whether it's internal, whether it's external, listen first. Try to understand all sides of it before responding before communicating back, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, etc. Listening is key. Data analytics has come up to be big time with product management. It's always been there, right? You always have to be able to have a really good analytical skills, but what does it mean now? There's so much data we have, and throw in AI and some chat GPT now, and it just becomes really important to understand and interpreting that data. That's a skill I'm seeing that's more difficult for people to get to. Some people are naturally better, can look at data and analyze it and talk about outcome versus others. But it's really understanding the data inputs, what information you're getting off product. There's some great tools now about usage. I wish I would have had that when I was an early product manager. I'm thinking of tools like we use Mixpanel, for example. Holy cats, would I have loved to put that on my mobile devices to figure out, what's going on. We had to do it the old-fashioned way. But understanding the treasure trove of data that's coming at you, and what you can interpret from that data. That's practice. You can go through, there's all different kinds of classes out there. There's degrees on this. There's all kinds of stuff, but it's practicing, it's understanding, take a shot at interpreting the data. Collaborate. Collaboration is a big thing. I think product managers get down into this hole of, I have to do it all, and you do not. Absolutely not. You need to use other people. You need to work with other people within the team, the external team, and where you need to get to. And I think, third thing is, with product management, it's environmental scanning a little bit. This is, they talk about environmental scanning. You typically hear this with, higher leadership roles, but I've been encouraging, whether it's, early career managers, product managers, environmental scanning. What does that mean? That means a little bit of what I said earlier, get outside the office. It is reading, consuming. There's a lot of content out there, but really understanding what's happening in your environment, whether it's, something you want to bring to market, whether it's a political event, whether it's a internal, there's, maybe a team's upset about something, or technology is a big thing, right? What cool new things are out there? Just really honing in on that. The fourth one that it's a little bit harder to talk about, but which I became really good at. It's one of my big skills now, is crisis leadership. There is, as a product manager, there's all different kinds of situations that come at you, and they can come at you at multiple times really fast. And you have to be cool, calm, and just, there's a quote from the Apollo 13 movie where, Dean Tiernan is saying, just work the problem, people, work the problem. Just step back and just figure out which pieces and how to solve that crisis. That will help a product manager get through the darkest of times. Whether you've just released a product that has 1,000 bugs and falls on its head, to anywhere from you've got an engineering team that is revolting on you, right? Somewhere in between. So that's been really helpful for me too, is not only moving into product management, but as I've grown as a leader, is to recognize that crisis will happen. It's not a matter of, kind of when, it's more, or not, it's not when, it's if. People say if a crisis happens, it's actually when, and being prepared for some of that, right? So that's, if I had my three product managers in front of me, that's what I would tell them.
That's awesome. I think those are some really good points. Everything from the outside in and listening really carefully to being able to, part of listening is the data
Right.
analytics really is listening. It's looking at the usage and being able to have those environmental scans, as you said, and finally that crisis leadership, being able to work the problem, because that's
Exactly.
at the end of the day, you are made a leader because people want you to solve the problem and
Right.
help build teams that can solve the problem, right? That's
Exactly.
part of your leadership. I really like to kind of maybe end off with this, but I really like your journey from product to C-suite to other leadership
Mhm.
roles. Often when I talk to startups, I say we're going to obsess over product market fit. This is, you have to
Yep.
build a phenomenal product and you're going to find a market that fits in. This is what we're all constantly fighting for, this product market fit.
Of course.
And when you are a product manager, you're obsessed with product, but to be able to become a leader beyond just product, you had to start obsessing about the market too. Well, what
Hmm.
are where does it fit in the market, but what does sales look like, what does customer
Yep.
success look like, and then the pieces between those operational pieces that you
Hmm.
said started building you up for a COO role, right? Like what
Right.
that looks like. And so often with a lot of our founders who are very product heavy, I say, well, you've
Hmm.
got to also get you to think about the market pieces, and or if they're a very business
Yep.
person, I've got to get you thinking about the product, like those
Yeah.
two pieces. So I like to hear that in your kind of role and your evolution. Well, Janet, this has been wonderful.
It's been
I know I learned a
fantastic.
lot
Thank
from
you.
our conversation. Thank you so much for sharing everything from your Girl Scout days, your Girl Scouts
I
cookie days,
I know.
to your basketball championships, to the challenges of being an empathetic leader and having to create really and make really difficult decisions, and how we can still lean into our empathy and lean into your style of leadership despite the different challenges that we have. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for all the
Thank
wisdom that you shared.
you.
I don't know if you have any last thoughts or words for us, but I appreciate you.
I don't know if I have any last words. I just thank you for the opportunity to talk about leadership. It's one of my passions, and I like I love mentoring people early career as they go to their journey. But thank you for allowing me to have the forum to talk about leadership. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeanette, for joining us and recording a phenomenal episode and taking us through your life journey of leadership, through all the different stages of your career. I found it wonderful to get through and to hear about. And I'd love to leave our audience with this one question. If you're listening and you've listened all the way here, I want you to really hone in on this. Do you, as a leader, know your strengths? Could you name them clearly, precisely? And how can you lean into your strengths more? How can you find opportunities where you're working within your strengths more? That would be what we take away here today. One of the key insights from Jeanette around being an effective female leader in tech is find your strength and exploit your strength. Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting all the way through. If you've got any questions, any topics you want us to cover, any guests who you think would be phenomenal for our podcast, please feel free to email me at fahd@unicornlabs.ca. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Unicorn Leadership Podcast. You can find the show notes and the transcripts at unicornlabs.ca/podcast. And if you like the content, be sure to rate it, to review it, to subscribe, to hit the little notifications button, tell your friends, shout out from the rooftops, and get Unicorn Leaders Podcast out there. Thank you so much for being an amazing audience. And that is all for now.